And we're live.
All right, I'd like to call to order the work session meeting for the Oregon City Commission. Today is Tuesday, December 13th.
Recording in progress.
Well, never mind, we'll start all over.
No, we're good. You can keep going.
Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. We have work session items. The commission will also be meeting in an executive session at the conclusion of the meeting. Let's have the roll call.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Here.
Commissioner Adam Morrill,
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Here.
Mayor Denise McGurk.
Here. All right. We have future agenda items, and has everybody had a chance to review the list? And this is just an update, and I will turn it over to Mr. Conkle.
Thank you. One of the items on there is February 7th community survey. We put that on tentatively. That might slide to March depending on how that survey goes. They need to get a certain number of responses in order for it to be statistically accurate.
You said it's out now?
It's,
Or will be?
It will be.
Oh, will be.
So, just not sure if it's going to make it back in time for that meeting. But other than that, that's the only update that I have related to the work sessions.
Have any of you ever participated have you ever been selected to be in the community survey? Since we've been doing? I think I did.
My household
I think I
has.
did once. I think I got,
Yeah.
You've done it once, yeah? Yeah, I mean, it's random, so it wasn't particularly picking us, but, yeah, I thought it was well. Do you think that there is any additional question that we wanted, like you said, from the last time we had a little leeway, we could add a question here or there, and the last time we had one about whether or not we would garner any community support for a parks bond. I think that was the question. I'm not saying it exactly how it was worded, but that was the gist of the question.
Yeah, the one we added was related to DEI.
And then we added we added two or one?
One.
One.
Just a question for the commission. Looking at the list of upcoming topics, does anyone feel strongly that any of those should be elevated to a higher position within the list?
Sort of.
As do I.
Well, which one do you have?
Well, I think economic development strategy follow-up would be something that I think we need to get our house in order because we're now in the winter with spring and summer approaching. It would be nice to have a firm grasp on what our plan is.
Anybody else have anything else on the list?
I would say anything that that's still unfinished with charter parks. It's been going way too long.
Well, it hasn't been a house on fire type issue, so we're
Well,
probably still okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I just agree with you on that.
Well, not everything can be on fire.
If I may comment, Chair.
Please.
That was a direction given, how many years ago?
Many years ago, well, several years ago.
And
Well, it's been since I've been on, so it hasn't been that
Before that.
It was before that, because Holliday was mayor.
Yeah.
And I think we accomplished some of them, did we not?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're
we've got
close.
them,
We got
so
some.
the
We got-
last five.
We got most of them done.
Last five were Sportcraft Landing. I think we've got some issues there because the charter limits the ability to lease
Promenade.
property. We got the promenade. We did the survey on the promenade, and we have multiple encroachments that we have to
Yes.
deal with. So those two are a little bit
Troublesome.
messy.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, we kind of stopped, to be honest, on those. Dement Park, we need to bring back and talk about. Ermitinger House was another one because of the configuration with the fire station and the public parking lot. And then the Claremont Way one is a little remnant piece. So all the other parks have been adopted as charter parks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The McLaughlin Promenade one is one we're going to have to really have some conversation about how we want to
Yeah.
deal with those multiple encroachments. If you ever look at the aerial
Yes.
and how they got there, there's just a lot there over, a long time.
Yeah, we had some recent ones where it wasn't so much it was a structure, it was people trying to expand their yards into the park, which I will say we very politely put the kibosh on that.
Yeah, I think we're definitely aware, much more aware now, especially once we had the survey done, of being proactive to try to limit any more encroachments than what exists today.
You probably need to put your mic up a little higher.
Yep.
I think one of the things that maybe didn't totally happen, I know we have a few pins out, I mean, they're pinned, but where the property lines are they were stakes, and unfortunately, most of those stakes have been removed.
But fortunately, that'll be relatively simple to
Yeah,
address
that's
the major work of the
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask
survey
you,
work.
how easy would it be to reestablish where those were?
It'd be very easy, because we invested in an actual survey. The surveyor found the pins, the surveyor staked them. We have the survey results, which we didn't have before. So that part we could address. I think it's more of both a public engagement component of that, of talking to residents, as well as how do we want to handle those situations.
Yeah, I think in terms of McLaughlin Promenade, it'd be I'm speaking off the top of my head, an idea would be to maybe have something at either this building or the City Hall building where we have the thing laid out, invite people to come in, kind of almost like we were doing, putting dots on a thing, and just have everybody come and talk about it. I mean, we're not telling them they have to do something, but we want to make sure that people are aware if they're not aware, because I'm sure there's some that probably didn't think anything of it. And some of those properties have changed hands in the last 3 to 5 years, not many, but a few. And I think that might be a way to sort of diffuse it. We want to work with you to understand what these are and how we can help resolve them. That way we're not repeating the same thing over and over again. Let's say there's 20 owners, we're not doing it 20 times. But we might have to have like 2 sessions to catch people as, they're employed or whatever they've got going on. But that might be more like an open house type thing where we actually just sit down and talk to people and have them, because everybody's in the same boat, It's just one of those things that happened over time, so.
The only other one I would elevate is the code enforcement complaint process. That and coverage, and I got involved in something initiated by a neighbor because of coverage on the weekend and who should enforce specific codes. So I think it's something that, is it complaint-based or can they act on observation?
Yeah, I think you and I have had some discussions at commission about that particular aspect and how we could be a little more proactive is
Yeah.
what I would say. I think sometimes that all it is you just need to go talk to somebody and make them aware of it. It's not like we're coming down with the piece of paper, but hey, by the way, were you aware of blah, 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 kind of take the more friendly approach. But yeah, that sounds good. Do you have anything, Mike?
Well, I have an item that's not on here. I don't know what the protocol is for suggesting items, but I'll suggest one. The state has given cities the authority to set speed limits. And should we discuss whether we want to have a policy in place or we wait until a citizen brings it forward and then we create a policy, whatever. Anyway, but I think that's something we should discuss.
I think we should initiate it now that the law has changed. It's something many of us in the neighborhoods have been wanting for many, many, many years. And
Right.
I think back to the discussions we had about Lynn Avenue and how the state came in and said, well, sorry, this is what it's going to be, and nobody was happy.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So those 4, economic development, charter parks, code enforcement, complaint process, city speed limit setting authority from state, are the 4 that we're going to elevate into January, February March. Consensus on that?
Yeah, I would.
I don't know where the speed limit one would be on the priority list. I just want to get it on the list.
Yeah.
I see.
We're just
Okay.
putting it on the list, yeah.
Okay.
I think we may probably have a consensus about trying to move up the economic development information.
Yeah.
I know that Mike and I have gone through that document with a fine-tooth comb, and many of the suggestions that we made have already been incorporated into the document, which is good.
I agree with that because I think the timing is now. The market is spring and summer, and now we won't be in time to have our actions in place.
Right. Okay, excellent day.
One other thing that was added for January 10th after the agendas went out was a discussion about, we're making progress on one of the ARPA-funded projects, which was the downtown public restroom. So we did want to bring a quick update about that.
So you said that you didn't mean January 10th, what?
Our next, the January 10th work session.
Oh, and you said it didn't make the agenda?
What,
It's a late edition.
it was elated,
Oh, okay,
after we
sorry.
mailed, after we mailed this
I'm
packet
having difficulty hearing
out.
you tonight for some reason.
Yeah. The other thing is I'm going to buy a little time because Jim's consultant is on his way and trying to get here as fast as he can. I just wanted to give the commission one update, if that's all right. We received a.
Sorry, I just completely missed that.
Sorry. So are we done talking about work session items?
Yes, we're done
coming
talking
up?
about the
All
work
right.
session. Let's move on to the next thing.
Okay,
So-
the next thing is supposed to be Chief Band, but I
Yes.
am asking if I can give you an update to buy a little bit of time here.
Yes.
As his consultant is on the way.
Okay.
We
Jim, are
received,
you good with that, or we're going to duke it out here?
we received an email from the National Park Service regarding some work that's going to happen at the McLaughlin House and the Barclay House. So they are preparing to put together a plan to start dealing with some of the foundation work, foundation repairs that are necessary there. In order to do that, they need to access the property. So the National Park Service owns both the Barclay House and the McLaughlin House. The city owns the land itself.
McLaughlin Park.
So what they're proposing to do is that they're going to bring in essentially an auger. They need to excavate 2 4.5-inch diameter holes to a depth of about 15 feet or until they hit something solid in order to do the geotechnical review and study to determine what has to happen with the foundation of the home. As part of that, it's identified as an archaeological site. They'll be working through SHPO, requesting an archaeological permit, notifying the federally recognized tribes. So I don't think that we need to do anything. I think I'm supportive. I guess if the commission has concerns, to let me know, but they reached out, we're going to work with them so that they can do the work necessary to do the study, to do the work on the foundation of the building.
I guess I would recommend, since that is our neighborhood, I would recommend that we go ahead and put something on the website about the work, because they're probably going to be blocking off certain parts. They won't be blocking off access to the promenade or these steps, but in terms of over by where the houses are, and if they're going to put, fencing or whatever, that way but don't mention the archaeological stuff, because we don't really want people to be over there doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. And then obviously a notification to, and that's easy because we can work together on that to the McLaughlin neighborhood so that they are aware. I know Tracy and Aaron know all of this, but, they sometimes just stay at one level and they don't get down to the next levels. But yeah, since I am a member of the McLaughlin Memorial Association, I was aware that this work might be coming up, and they talked about it at our last quarterly meeting, which was in October, but it's the timing. They just didn't know when they were going to get.
And I still don't think they know.
We still don't know that. But I do
They haven't even submitted the permits yet. They're still trying to prepare them.
But I do have good news. We actually have verbal permission to replace the bench in kind, which of course I've been working on for like 10 years. So I will work with Mr. Reed to see about getting that, to make that happen. The bench that's right near the steps is, believe me, it's It's in very deteriorated
Yeah.
condition.
All right.
So that's all
That's it.
That's all I would add about just making sure that there's some because people will, what's going on over there? And they are closed right now, so they just closed last weekend. But people do still come through the park. And the other thing is they've been working on the fountain, which is really nice. So hopefully by spring, the fountain will be up and running again. And that will
right.
be a nice addition.
Okay. Good to
All
go?
right.
Okay.
You want stalling anymore? I mean,
No.
we could start
We're good.
telling some jokes or,
We're good.
humorous stories, whatever you'd like.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. We don't absolutely have to have him. I just think it'd be nice to have him here, and he should be here any minute. He was coming up from Salem. So I've done some fairly dangerous things in my career in policing. I'm about to talk about trees in a public meeting, so this is
Trees
right
and
up there.
sidewalks.
How come you don't have John Lewis here? He's your authority.
Well, so this is ours. In code enforcement, we're in control of the municipal parking lot. So if I'm coming before you without any decisions or direction, we have looked at this site. If you visited the site, there's a lot of sidewalk issues. There's tree issues, and as we were trying to come up with what would we take to the commission, it's just sort of a morass. And so there's so many different options that we thought the best thing to do would be to just come have a conversation with you and sort of talk about the problem, talk about some potential solutions, and Terry Flanagan is there's an arborist report that was attached. They're an arborist that done work in other places of the city. They don't cut down trees, they don't even prune trees, all they do is consulting, so they don't really have a dog in the fight at all. But I'm gonna start walking through this, and I think he should be showing up here in the middle of it in case you have any questions for him. The area we're talking about, the municipal lot, on Main Street and 13th, and then in the parking lot, so this is right next to the Ice House. On Main Street, this is right across from where the boat place is, Active Water Sports, I think it's called. There's 5 mature American lindens. On 13th, there's 5 mature autumn blaze maples. They're fairly tall. And then in the parking lot, there's some younger red maples. One of the most, I think that this is obviously not a new topic, street trees and sidewalks. In the arborist report, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the types of trees on Main and 13th, according to the report, require 1,000 cubic feet of soil volume to sustain life. The current site conditions have 60 to 120 cubic feet. So that's why you've got this situation that's going on there. This is something we've talked about several times as it relates to street trees. You can see the area here. My mouse will show up here. This is Main Street. This is the Ice House, 12th, 13th right here. So just some pictures. So these are both kind of from the same perspective. I was standing in front of the Ice House. You can see these trees. I believe Ryan told me that these trees, in the time he's been here, have been topped twice by, what's the word I'm looking for?
PGE.
PGE. On the right here, you can see on the other side of the sidewalk the other maples. And you can see we just re-sprayed those spots in the sidewalk, the lines. This is a side view of that same tree you were just looking at. I'm over by Active Water Sports. Just to give you kind of an idea of, you can see the flat sidewalk here, how much this tree has lifted between the roots. You can also see from this has already been ground once, and now it's lifting to a place that it's we've got to do something. This is one of the worst of all these trees. This is one of the trees, there's two of them that have done a lot, and this is one of the most problematic ones. It's the one closest to the ice house. So this is a look up from that same direction. You can see the trees that get topped a lot on the left, the ones on the right, and we're not proposing doing anything with these, but one of the things that is fairly interesting looking at this is I think that these maples are getting sort of choked by the other trees. And so whatever might happen with trees, at least there are trees on that parking lot side. Now, this is 13th Street, so I'm on Main Street looking the other direction. You can see, same view from here, how large the tree has gotten here, filling that space. And right across from that tree, you can see in this planter area where these younger maples are, and it's in the report about how aggressive the roots are. But the root systems are pretty busy in that other space. So now we're on 13th from both ends. You can see those are the blaze maples, I believe, that are fairly tall. They do not get topped. And here's a good shot of them from under the railroad there. You can see they've got quite a bit of canopy there. This is looking up, a pretty good shot because you can see here, these have been, the wells have been cut out before. This little line that you see here by the pointer in the photo on the left, that is a root barrier that was put in originally when those sidewalks are put in, and they're supposed to contain the roots somehow. And you can see that at some point we cut out the sidewalks to allow more room for growth. And then in the trees further up here, you can see that the same thing was done and that panels were replaced around those trees. And then you get an idea, this is from the same perspective, that you're at about 2 inches of lift there. Now this is on the other end. I think this is the other seemingly most problematic tree in terms of the lift that it's created. I don't know how much the picture shows it, but down where the pointer is here, there's not just lifting of the sidewalk, but there's also pretty considerable separation. The curb is starting to separate as well. And then this is the next tree over. Same thing. Those are both pictures of the same crack. You're at about 2 inches there. So there's some options. The thing I sort of tried to figure out is keeping trees at all cost. What will this site look like in 10 years if we don't do anything? In 10 years, will these trees have died? Anyway, slowly, which the arborist has told me, no, these trees are not going to die. They're just going to keep growing and damaging things. If we took a crazy nuclear option and just started over and redesigned the site completely, took out all the trees, what are the impacts? Do we take just a couple trees? There were options spelled out in the report of structural cells, soil vaults, lifting the sidewalks and digging tunnels. Not being John Lewis, those seem like very expensive ways of dealing with this. And once you lifted those sidewalks, there's utilities and all manner of issues there. One of the options they had were removing existing trees, expand the tree wells, and replant with more appropriate species. Remove the problem sidewalk sections, cut the problem roots and replace those sections, see what happens. And then do option 4 and only remove the 2 worst trees, the 2 that I mentioned to you. These are just ideas to talk about. One of the things that Terry Flanagan mentioned that you can do is you can cut panels, lift panels, cut out large roots, and then hook up a truck to the tree and pull on it a little bit. And when you do that, you can tell by pulling if you just removed a structurally problematic root or not. So it might be that you hook onto it after cutting out some big roots, you pull on it, and the tree is still solid, so it's not going to be a problem to just pour a new panel over it. Or it could be that you cut that out, you pull on the tree, and you're structurally going to be in a problem place with the tree. If that were the case, you lift the sidewalk, you cut out the big root, you see you destabilize the tree, you have to kind of be prepared to take the tree down right then and there. So this whole thing would sort of have to be planned because, does that make sense, that last bit?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that seemed like an option that was at least interesting. The only other thing that I thought about, literally just throwing everything on the table, without regard to cost or would this even work, the trees that have the largest canopy, the trees that PGE keep cutting, they're going to keep cutting. I do not know if this would work, but if you look at this picture right here, and I don't know if the arborist thinks this would work, but there is some space where my pointer is on the left here. So just walking the site and looking at, could you build a retaining wall on the right-hand side here, because you're buying yourself maybe 2 feet, and leave those trees where they are, and just extend right where the shrubbery is, take the shrubbery out, and put sidewalk there. I think eventually those trees are probably going to be creeping into that. Maybe you buy yourself 10 years of enjoying those trees. I was just trying to think of any way, any option of maybe keeping certainly those taller trees that have such a nice canopy that have never been topped around longer. So,
Well, to be honest with you, generally, tree companies don't recommend topping. What they recommend is, they do selective trimming, and I've seen where they've trimmed, around where the wires are, but topping just makes them kind of get bushy if they survive that particular type.
are you talking about the ones that PGE is trimming?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Can you bring back up the first photo that you showed that had the big trees on the left side and the maples on the right side?
Yes. That one?
Yeah. So we're saying that the row of trees on the right, the maples, are not problematic as far as wrecking the sidewalk?
They're not lifting sidewalks, no.
Okay.
you're talking about the parking lot trees?
Yes.
Yeah.
The ones on the parking lot side of the sidewalk. So if we decided that those biggest ones would go away, there still would be that row of those maples on the other side of the sidewalk?
Correct. And
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thanks.
it seemed to me, looking at the photo on the right, that would likely fill in if that happened. The other problem then that I don't know, that obviously there would be some sort of solution, but what do you put in place on the left that is not going to keep, it's going to have to keep getting topped. So, what do you find that would be
Suitable.
topped or controlled in a way that would work with those power lines overhead?
Did they have a recommendation for another species of tree?
Excuse me, what about?
Did they have a recommendation for a different species of tree if we were to replant in the street tree side?
They did not give a specific type. They did say plant with a different tree that would work.
Yeah, and we have our-
PG has a tree list.
Yeah, well, so do we. So, and I know that
recommended under
our committee consulted with that list when they put our list together. So I think we would have it covered, but it'd be nice if they had a suggestion. Mr. O'Donnell, I'm going to start with you for comments.
I think I'll just reserve comment.
Okay? Mr. Smith?
Well, they're causing a problem for above and below, so I think we have to figure out a way to replace them. I guess One of my issues with all of the other street tree issues and sidewalk issues is that we are consistent, which means we should not be doing anything with these trees or these sidewalks that we wouldn't be allowing the citizens to do. The other question, though, is I know of other city properties where the sidewalks are even worse than that. And if we're looking, I mean, if we have been so proactive in certain neighborhoods about dealing with it, then, at what point are we going to deal with the ones on city property? I know when I was at concerts in the park, seeing the sidewalks at the end of the Oregon Trail and Terpers, and they're 5 inches, 6 inches of gaps. I mean, it's unbelievable that that's been allowed for this amount of time. So if we're dealing with some of these issues, and that's on the property, not on the street so much at the end of the Oregon Trail, but I know there's other places where we're having these issues, and some of them are because of the same issues with the neighborhood, we planted the wrong trees. So I wouldn't mind trying to figure out where those other issues are. The city tends to, kind of crack down on rules, but don't really, follow our own rules until it's after the fact. So I think we need to be looking at those and starting to fix them too. But I don't know how you fix this without replacing the trees, because they're just going to keep getting bigger. And if PG is already dealing with them every year, cutting them down, we're going to have to put something smaller in there.
Mr. Morrow?
I agree with Commissioner Smith. I think despite the fact that I would like to see our canopy remain, this is just an instance of us having to kick the can down the road or deal with it now, and I'd prefer that we deal with it now and replace the trees.
Mr. Mitchell?
I agree with both the other commissioners. Those trees are just too big for that spot. And I also agree that we need to do something that we would allow a citizen to do as well. I don't see any way that you could financially fix the sidewalk tunnel, do all of that, and be prudent with our money. So I think we have to be looking at replacing those trees on the left with something that's more appropriate for the spot.
Well, I would concur, but let me say that we are doing more than what we require the community to do. My concern has been all along is that we have allowed people to just cut them down when there are other options available, and we at least are setting an example on these last few projects where we have looked at alternatives and said, we're weighing them, whereas somebody hires an arborist who's also a tree cutter downer company, and they say, oh, these trees need to go, and that's it, that's the end of it. So we are going above and beyond what we are asking the community to do, and the community needs to do this as well. They need to come up with options if they want to take trees down, because we have lost, not just with the storm, but just, as I mentioned, certain parts of streets are just gone. But I went on a walk with the chief, probably, was it 2 months ago we did this? And you were going to come back with these alternatives. So we walked it, and I looked at them, and I looked at them from the standpoint of, are you the tree person? Yeah. Okay, come on up. We'll give you a second to catch your breath. Thank you for making the effort to be here. We appreciate it. You know, you had to come from.
205 was its usual backup.
Oh, I'm sure.
Good job.
So what I think that we have done here is that you have explored some options. As you know, I'm very supportive of the tree canopy, and I don't like to take trees out if we have other alternatives. But I think in light of how PGE has trimmed them, I think have caused problems, because they get topped, and then the tree goes, oh, well, I just better, send out more and more. And that has exacerbated part of the problem. I think the nice thing that we're going to do is be able to allow the parking lot trees to maybe flourish a little more. And there must be a lot of water and everything we have over in that area, maybe from the rain, they're soaking. But anyway, those things have really grown since I've lived here. I mean, they have really gotten a lot bigger, because they were a lot smaller, when they were put in. So I think the direction that we are giving you is that please go ahead and do the alternative where the trees are removed and it's cleaned up, and get a recommendation for a species that would be better. I know that a lot of people park along there in the summertime because it's shady, and hopefully our parking lot trees will do a little bit better and provide some additional shade for the vehicles and also the pavement as well. Yes, sir.
So American lindens, I understand where everybody is. The blaze maples on 13th, same thing?
I think so, because economies of scale. I mean, if we're going to be taking trees out and repairing sidewalk, we're going to get a much better proposal if we've got a grouping rather than one here, one there. I hate to see the ones on 13th Street go, but they're doing the same thing, and, you know. So I think so the question we had while you were out of the room is that you didn't put in the report that there was a recommendation, but just off the top of your head, is there something else you might suggest might be better there, just from your knowledge of trees?
That's a loaded question.
Is it loaded? Okay, all right.
There's a lot of issues going on here.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Terry Flanagan, Terrigan and Associates. I own the firm and been doing tree work since 1977, so quite a few years. I've had the consulting company for about 22 years. But, one of the issues is they try to put too many trees.
Too many?
Too many in the space that's available. The amount of soil for the tree roots to grow is limited. And so the maples have survived because they have escaped their confinement. And that's what's lifting the sidewalks. So, if you are really going to do removal and replacement, which is a great idea, we need to look at creating soil walls so that the trees can reach their mature size, natural mature size, without causing this problem over and over and over again. It is investment, but it's an investment that will pay off literally for hundreds of years.
So when we roll our wheelchairs down there, we'll be having some shade then?
And you won't hit the bumps.
That's right. We won't hit any bumps.
But, like I say, it's expensive, but it's well worth the effort. City of Milwaukee has the same issue with their downtown trees. They did a great job planting trees like this in their downtown, but they started to lift the sidewalk, and every time they remove and replace the sidewalk, about 5 years later, they're doing it again. And we did suggest soil vaults, but the cost was such that they didn't want to do that until they actually did the redevelopment of their downtown. So you might actually consider proposals to do the soil vaults. It may not be quite as much here as it would be in downtown Milwaukee. And maybe even consider reducing the number of trees. Landscape architects tend to overplant because they design their landscapes and stock their trees to the level where they would fill in nicely at 7 years after planting. And they do that for a good reason. Plant trees spaced as they should be for mature size, it would look very bare when they first put in. But ideally, they are planted in a manner where the spacing is going to allow them to reach their full mature size without competing against each other and causing these types of problems.
Okay, so sounds like less trees would be more beneficial than more. And I guess one of the questions I wrote down after I read the report was, in your professional opinion, do we have any symbiotic relationship going on between the parking lot tree roots and the street tree roots that are commingling with each other? And the reason I ask is I saw a recent program on PBS about that relationship between trees and the forest. Mostly it was dealing with firs, and I understand how that works, but I kept seeing, when I was walking this and looking at seeing where the tree roots were going, I thought, oh, I wonder if there's something's going on with the trees in the parking lot versus the trees on the street.
Not really. They may be sharing some of the same soil space if it's possible. But are you talking about the communication between trees? Yeah, there's probably some communication between trees, but that's not necessarily something that's going to be lacking if the trees are removed and replaced. We
Well, Jim
can
will go
redevelop
Have a
that.
chat with them, make
What's
sure
that?
they all know.
I'm sorry, what?
All right,
So it's not going to hurt the smaller trees
Yeah.
by taking.
No, it shouldn't hurt them.
there you go. You know how people sometimes go up to trees and they hug them and they listen to see what's going on with them? That's, I saw that on the PBS program too. Okay, does that help you? Does that give you direction?
Very much.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
And I'm alive to talk about it. Thank you.
You can coordinate with Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
At some point, I'd like to see the chief's job description because of the breadth of his duties, whether it be public bathrooms or trees or,
Inspecting privies?
is there any time for law enforcement in there?
I told somebody walking in here, I said, I became a cop because I used to watch the cop show when I was a teenager, and I think I would love to do what they're doing there. And I said, I have never seen a cops episode of a police officer talking about trees and parking lots. And I think you asked me when I called you, you said, can I just ask you, you're the chief of police, why are you calling me about this?
Because they have a parking lot. Well,
Other duties as assigned.
yes, the cop shows that I see I've seen them babysit small children. What else have I seen on these shows? It's, doing psychological evaluation. I mean, there's a lot of, think about Monk and all the other shows that are on about police officers. So, all right. Are we good, Mr. Conkle? Okay. So are we going to adjourn the work session and go to the next thing? All right.